The brass bell above the door chimed for the first time on a Tuesday morning in March, when the cherry trees were just beginning to think about blooming and the air still held winter's bite. Elena Vasquez turned the key in the lock of what had been Murphy's five and dime for 63 years, took a deep breath that tasted of sawdust and possibility, and stepped into her new life. The store still smelled like the previous owner, a mixture of peppermint candies, leather polish, and the particular mustiness that accumulates in places where time moves slowly. Elena had spent the past month scrubbing, painting, and rearranging, but some essences refused to be erased. She was learning to think of it not as someone else's smell lingering, but as the store's own perfume, layered with decades of small transactions and quiet conversations. She'd bought the place from old Murphy's estate after he passed at 91, still coming to work every day until a heart attack took him peacefully behind the counter on a Thursday afternoon. The family had been grateful to find someone who wanted to preserve what Murphy had built rather than tear it down for condos or a chain pharmacy. Elena wasn't sure she was the right person for the job, but she was the willing person, which sometimes amounts to the same thing. The store occupied the corner of Maple and 3rd, a narrow building squeezed between Rose's beauty salon and what used to be Peterson's Hardware before Home Depot moved in across town. From the outside, it looked like something from a Norman Rockwell painting: red brick facade, large windows displaying an eclectic mix of merchandise, and a hand-painted sign that Elena had painstakingly restored to read, Maple Street General Store, in forest green letters. Inside, the space was longer than it was wide, with hardwood floors that creaked in a comfortable rhythm and shelves that reached nearly to the pressed tin ceiling. Elena had kept Murphy's basic layout but added her own touches: a coffee station near the front where people could help themselves to free cups while they browsed, a community bulletin board where neighbors could post everything from babysitting services to lost cat flyers, and a small section dedicated to local artists and craftspeople. The inventory was an intentional mixture of practical and whimsical. Elena stocked the basics people needed: batteries, aspirin, phone chargers, light bulbs, alongside items that made people smile. Locally made soaps that smelled like lavender and honey, vintage-style toys that reminded grandparents of simpler times, and books by regional authors that told stories of this particular corner of the world. Her first customer was Mrs. Henderson from 2 blocks over, looking for birthday candles for her grandson's cake. She'd been shopping at Murphy's since 1987 and had worried the store's closure would force her to drive to the big box stores on the highway. "It feels the same but different," Mrs. Henderson said, examining the display of candles Elena had arranged near the register. Murphy never carried these fancy ones with the numbers. "He had the right idea about keeping things simple," Elena replied, ringing up the purchase. "I just thought maybe we could be simple with a few more options." Mrs. Henderson smiled, counting out exact change from a small coin purse. "Murphy would have liked you. He always said this place needed someone who understood that a store isn't just about selling things, it's about being part of the neighborhood." By lunchtime, Elena had served 18 customers. Some were curiosity seekers, neighbors who wanted to see what she'd done with the place. Others were practical shoppers who needed thumbtacks or aspirin and were relieved to find them without driving across town. A few were clearly testing her, longtime Murphy customers checking to see if she would maintain the informal credit system he'd operated for families going through rough patches, or whether she'd remember that Mr. Garcia preferred his newspaper folded in half. Elena passed every test without knowing she was being tested. When 8-year-old Tommy Chen came in with $1.50, wanting to buy his mother a birthday present, she helped him find a small succulent plant that would fit his budget and threw in a hand-painted pot at no extra charge. When Mrs. Williams mentioned she couldn't find her husband's preferred brand of pipe tobacco anywhere since the tobacco shop closed, Elena made a note to research suppliers. The afternoon brought a steady stream of foot traffic, people ducking in to escape a sudden spring shower, workers from nearby offices grabbing snacks, mothers with strollers navigating the narrow aisles while their toddlers marveled at the penny candy display Elena had reconstructed from Murphy's original jars. At 3:30, the school bell rang 6 blocks away, and the character of the store's clientele shifted. Teenagers appeared in clusters, pooling quarters for sodas and chips, their conversations a mixture of homework complaints and social drama that Elena found herself unconsciously listening to, remembering her own after-school rituals from decades past. One girl lingered after her friends left, pretending to study the magazine rack while clearly wrestling with some internal debate. Elena busied herself restocking the coffee supplies, giving the girl space to make whatever decision she was contemplating. "Excuse me," the girl finally said, approaching the counter with careful steps. "Do you have any jobs? Like, part-time after school?" Elena looked up from the coffee filters, taking in the girl's nervous energy, the way she clutched her backpack straps like anchors. She was maybe 16, with the kind of serious expression that suggested she'd been thinking about this conversation for weeks. "What's your name?" Elena asked. "Sarah. Sarah Martinez. I live on Oak Street, about 4 blocks from here. What kind of work experience do you have, Sarah?" "Not much," Sarah admitted, her honesty refreshing after years of hiring conversations filled with exaggerated qualifications. "I babysit for the Johnsons sometimes, and I helped my aunt in her restaurant kitchen last summer. I'm good at math, and I'm not afraid of hard work." Elena found herself making a decision she hadn't planned to make. She'd been thinking about hiring help eventually, when the store got busier, when she better understood the rhythms of retail life. But something about Sarah's straightforward approach and obvious need convinced her that eventually might be now. The position would be 3 hours after school, 4 days a week, plus Saturday mornings, Elena said, watching Sarah's face carefully. "Minimum wage to start, but I believe in raises for good work. You'd help with stocking, running the register, and keeping the place clean. Sometimes you'd be here alone for short periods while I run errands. Think you can handle that?" Sarah's careful composure cracked, revealing the teenager underneath the serious facade. "Really? You mean it? I can start whenever you want. Tomorrow if you need me. How about we start with a trial period? Come in tomorrow after school, and we'll see how it goes for both of us." After Sarah left, practically bouncing with excitement, Elena realized she'd just made her first major decision as a business owner based entirely on instinct. Murphy, she thought, would have approved. He'd built his reputation on reading people correctly, on understanding that sometimes the right person for a job wasn't the most qualified person, but the most motivated one. The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. A few more neighbors stopped in to introduce themselves and welcome her to the block. Mr. Petrov from the apartment building behind the store bought a newspaper and mentioned that his English wasn't very good yet, but he liked having a place to practice simple conversations. Elena made a mental note to research whether there were ESL classes at the community center she could recommend. As closing time approached, Elena found herself reluctant to end her first official day. She walked through the store, straightening items that didn't need straightening, wiping down surfaces that were already clean, trying to process the mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration that comes from diving headfirst into a new life. The brass bell chimed one last time as she was counting the day's receipts. An elderly man entered, moving slowly with the aid of a carved wooden cane. "I'm sorry," Elena said, looking up from the cash register. "We're actually closed, but if there's something you need urgently." "Just wanted to introduce myself," the man said, his voice carrying the careful cadence of someone who'd learned English as a second language many decades ago. "I'm Giuseppe Torino. I live upstairs above Rosa's salon. I knew Murphy since 1961, when I first came to this neighborhood." Elena came around the counter, extending her hand. "Elena Vasquez. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Torino." "Giuseppe, please. I wanted to tell you, Murphy, he was a good man, but he was set in his ways. This neighborhood, it's changing. Getting younger families, people from different places. Murphy, he served everyone well, but maybe he didn't always understand what the new people needed." Elena waited, sensing there was more. "I think you will understand," Giuseppe continued. "You have the look of someone who pays attention. This store, it could be a bridge, you know, between the old families like mine, and the new ones still figuring out how to belong here." "I hope so," Elena replied. "I'm still figuring out how to belong here myself." Giuseppe smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. "That's exactly why you're the right person for this place. Murphy, he belonged here so completely he forgot what it felt like to be new. You won't make that mistake." After he left, Elena stood in her empty store, surrounded by the accumulated merchandise of daily life, soap and batteries, birthday candles and magazines, penny candy and practical necessities, and felt the weight of Giuseppe's words. She'd bought a business, but somewhere in the process, she'd also accepted a responsibility she hadn't fully understood. This store wasn't just her livelihood, it was a gathering place, a constant in people's routines, a spot where the community intersected with itself dozens of times each day. She turned off the lights and locked the door, the brass bell offering a gentle farewell chime. Outside, the street was settling into evening, porch lights flickering on, the sounds of dinner preparation drifting from open windows, children being called inside for homework and baths. Elena had opened a store, but what she'd really opened was a conversation with her new neighborhood. Tomorrow, she'd continue learning the language of